Hello, everybody. It is Monday, May 25th, year 2020, and it is 4:01 and 54 seconds p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is my show, Housatonic Live. Welcome, everybody. And today we have episode 32.1, and we're just going to jump right into it. This is a Memorial Day show, and it's about a topic that I've been hoping to cover for quite some time now. And that is my wife's brother, my uncle that I've never met, Uncle Jack, Jack Highstand, and the United States Coast Guard Cuyahoga, and how it perished, and in remembrance of this vessel. Hello, welcome to the chat, everybody. No, don't cry. There's been many people who've been lost, and this is a Memorial Day for those who were lost in service, lost in wars, lost defending the nation, and for them and for their bravery, men and women, for ever since the Civil War. Just try to keep the chat, everyone, focused on just be quiet, talk amongst yourselves. Of course, there's many issues going on in the world right now, but let's just put those aside. They're going to be there tonight. They're going to be there tomorrow. So we have some readings. It's not a subject that I'm necessarily a expert in myself, but let's just dig right in and go through it. Go through some of the history first. Oops, in episode 32.1 here. So the the Cuyahoga, or WIX-157, active class patrol boat, built in 1927, it was an older boat, saw action in World War II. It's remembered for having sank in a nighttime collision in the Chesapeake Bay while on patrol in 1978. She was later raised and resunk, and we'll go over those details. The active class was one of the most useful, long-lasting in the service. 33 ships were built, with 16 cutters still in use in the 1960s. The last to be decommissioned was the USCGC Morris in 1970. The last in service was the Cuyahoga, sunk in 1978. They were designed for the outer line of patrol during Prohibition, trailing motherships. They gained a reputation for durability, only enhanced by their re-engining in the late 1930s. Their original 6-cylinder diesels were replaced by significantly more powerful 8-cylinder GE 268A engines, each with 800 base horsepower, that used the original engine beds and gave the vessels 3 additional knots. All served in World War II. However, the Jackson and the Bedloe were lost in the Great Atlantic Hurricane in 1944. Now, this one, the 157, was built by American Brown Boveri, launched January 27, 1927, and commissioned on March 3, 1927, at Camden, New Jersey. After commissioning, she saw duty in the Atlantic, enforcing prohibition by intercepting rum runners. She returned to the Coast Guard jurisdiction on May 17, 1941, and recommissioned by the Coast Guard at the Washington Navy Yard on that day. She arrived at her new permanent station at Baltimore, Maryland, on May 20th, 1941. On January 17th, 1942, her permanent station was changed to Baltimore, in Norfolk, Virginia, where she reported to Commander Defense Area Group for duty. During World War II, the Cuyahoga was on escort duty attached to Commander Eastern Sea Frontier and Commander Caribbean Sea Frontier. From October 1942 to June 1945, she spent the majority of her time in the Caribbean Sea, usually escorting vessels between Guantanamo Bay, Trinidad, and Paramaribo. Apologies. During the war, Cuyahoga was armed with one 3-inch caliber anti-aircraft gun and 2 depth charge racks. After the war, Cuyahoga operated out of Norfolk until May 1946, when she, along with Calypso, was placed in commission reserve status due to personnel shortages. In April 1947, Cuyahoga was transferred from Norfolk to the United States Coast Guard Yard at Curtis Bay, Maryland, and worked with the field testing and development unit, except for occasional engineering and other operational activities. From 1957-1959, she was assigned to New London, Connecticut, and then back to Norfolk. Now, the collision and the sinking story. On October 20th, 1978, Cuyahoga was the oldest commissioned vessel in the Coast Guard service and was conducting a nighttime training cruise during clear weather. She was heading north at 12 knots in the Chesapeake Bay off Smith Point Light, near the mouth of the Potomac River. At 8:45 p.m., Officer Candidate, you'll typically see that abbreviated as OC, Officer of the Deck Earl Fairchild, reported sighting a light on the northern horizon. The commanding officer, Chief Warrant Officer Donald K. Robinson, confirmed this observation, and after evaluating the radar contact, misidentified the contact as a similarly northbound small vessel, likely a fishing boat turned into the Potomac River at 15,700 yards. In fact, the 521-foot Argentinian bulk freighter MV Santa Cruz II, loaded with 19,000 tons of coal, bound for San Nicolas de los Arroyos, Argentina, traveling south at over 14 knots. The pilot of Santa Cruz, who was a John P. Hamill, identified Cuyahoga, and neither he nor the ship's captain, Abdelarrabo Albornoz, were concerned, as the two ships appeared to be passing port to port. When the two vessels were 1,200 yards apart, Cuyahoga turned west into the path of Santa Cruz to enter the Potomac River to moor for the night. Hamill immediately sounded Santa Cruz's whistle, signaling that he would maintain course and speed, and that the cutter should return to its original course. After waiting 30 seconds without any response from Cuyahoga, Hamill sounded a danger warning of 5 short blasts. Robinson still believed the vessel was a small fishing boat, and that it was also turning into the Potomac River, sounded his whistle in acknowledgement, and turned further west. Robinson realized that he was about to collide with a freighter and ordered all engines stop, then full reverse. At 9:07 p.m., the bulbous underwater bow of Santa Cruz tore through Cuyahoga's midship, 40 feet from the stern, rolling her over at a 50-degree angle. Robinson had reversed back into the path of Santa Cruz. Cuyahoga sank within 2 minutes of the collision in 58 feet of water. The cutter's 14-foot utility boat had popped free of the sinking vessel, and boatswain's mate Roger Wild put the injured survivors in the boat. The uninjured clung to the sides of the boat until the freighter returned to pick up survivors. 11 on board Cuyahoga were killed, but 18 survived. Cuyahoga sank within 2 minutes of the collision. The Marine Casualty Report, according to the Marine Casualty Report number USCG 16732, dated July 31st, 1971, concluded, the commandment has determined that the proximate cause of the casualty was that the commanding officer of the Cuyahoga failed to properly identify the navigation lights displayed by the MV Santa Cruz II. As a result, he did not comprehend that the vessels were in a meeting situation and altered the Cuyahoga's course to port, taking his vessel into the path of the Santa Cruz II. No, afterwards she was resurfaced and then rescuttled and then ultimately used for a reef. There's another description here on this site, on this Navy site here. Reading through those who were lost. Machinery Technician Senior Chief Petty Officer David P. Mackin, Yeoman Petty Officer First Class William M. Carter, Subsistence Specialist Petty Officer First Class Ernestino A. Balina, Seaman Apprentice Michael A. Atkinson, Fireman Apprentice James L. Hellier, Seaman Apprentice David S. McDowell, Officer Candidate James W. Clark, Officer Candidate John P. Jack Heistand, Officer Candidate Edward J. Thomason, Officer Candidate Bruce E. Wood, and a lieutenant in the Indonesian Navy, Wiono Sumalyo. This is a updated article. This is marking the 40th anniversary. This was from 2018 from the Hartford Courant. 40 years ago Saturday, the Coast Guard cutter Cuyahoga was cruising north on Chesapeake Bay when at 9:06 p.m. it struck the 521-foot Argentinian coal freighter. The Cuyahoga, the oldest ship then in commission in the Coast Guard or Navy, was a training vessel for the Coast Guard Officer Candidate School. During its 51 years of service, it chased rum runners through Prohibition, escorted presidential yachts, and searched for German submarines in World War II. The 29 men on board Cuyahoga that night in 1978 included its regular crew, 14 officer candidates, and 2 Indonesian Navy officers. The 125-foot cutter was no match for the freighter. The cutter was pushed backward and then fell away from the freighter, its starboard side heavily damaged according to a Coast Guard account of the collision. Cuyahoga listed sharply and moments later sank in 57 feet of water. The Argentine freighter, the Santa Cruz II, rescued 18 men from the water. The 11 men who were lost were mostly in the berthing areas or the engine room, both of which took direct impact of the collision. And there you can see a photo of the ship that was still in the water. And this is after it was pulled up. You can see the enormous hole that was left on the side of the hull after the collision. Among the dead were 4 officer candidates, one of the Indonesian officers, and 6 of the Cuyahoga's regular crew. So this is my wife's uncle, Uncle Jack there on the far right. Very young. He was only in his early 20s. At the time, he was still in officer candidate school. Tall man, I think around 6'3", 6'4". Tall, handsome, not yet married. Here he's in the color guard, probably lined up to lead a cadet parade. A couple more pictures. These are courtesy of my father-in-law, Peter. A couple notes on these. This is a collection of Jack's pics from an assortment of ages. The one on the lower left is of him and me. So this is actually my father-in-law, Peter, and young Uncle Jack. He was probably about 3. He said he tried to rotate the images. Huh. Anyways, it's one of the several pictures that I include in my show's introduction. Of course, this happened quite a few years before I met Cheryl. But it was just one of many hundreds of thousands of people who are lost on this Memorial Day. So on this Memorial Day, just wanted to say thank you to Uncle Jack. Thank you for your service. And thank you for the many, many other people who have perished and sacrificed everything for the defense of the United States and for freedom in other nations. In these troubling times, you inspire us, and we keep you close to our hearts, whether we knew you directly or whether we knew you indirectly. That's all for today. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and God bless.